For our webinar sessions. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jyotishna and I'll be moderating today's session. Today's session is on product and experience development. Creating a well-planned tourism product and experience is very vital for better positioning and visibility in the global tourism market. It brings innovation, experience, and services to the market for tourists to be charmed. So it's very important how the resources of a destination are shaped to meet visitor needs and requirements. So today, colleagues, we will hear from our proficient team of panel on key constraints that underpin tourism product and experience development. We will be learning from successful partnership that support a more diversified tourism experience market, and we will be discussing ways in which the tourism industry can meet and address challenges and opportunities to better inform future development. So before I go ahead and introduce the panel, may I request everyone to turn on the cameras for a photo session, please. This is for our social media post. So if you can please turn on your cameras. So if everyone is ready, please. Thank you. So joining us today in the panel, we have Society of Travel Associates President, Ms. Beatrice Nast, Tourism Fiji Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Lee Howard, Waka Fiji Managing Director, Mr. James Soane, Singatoka River Safari Managing Director, Mr. Jay White, Nukumbati Private Island and Great Sea Reef Divers, Ms. Lara Brook and Mr. Leon. A big Vinaka Vakalavu to the panelists for taking out time to share with us your knowledge and experience in this space. So colleagues, this is a 2-hour session. The first hour will be contribution from the panelists on the topic. That's 10 minutes per person. And the second hour will be dedicated to Q&A. We want to make this session very interactive. So please feel free to share your views. And if you have any questions, please put it in the chat box as we go along. Also note that this session is recorded and we will later share it on our MCTTT website. So without further ado, I will invite our first panelist. She's the president of Society of Travel Associates, Ms. Beatrice Nast. She has been working in the tourism sector for the last 30 years, and she's currently holding the presidency of SOFTA, which covers the tour and transport operators and inbounders in Fiji. She is also a SME director of Misove, Fiji's first goat milk soap. She wears several hats in the industry, and today she will be sharing with us examples and lessons learned to better inform and strengthen Fiji's tourism product and experience development. Ms. Beatrice, you have the floor, please.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, MCTTT, for having me, and welcome everybody outside and my fellow colleagues speaking after me. So my topic today is lessons learned to better inform and strengthen Fiji's tourism product and experience in development. But first of all, I would like to introduce the organization SOFTA, which I'm speaking for, which is existing since 56 years now. And the members are mainly tour and transport operators and inbound agents. Their companies are covering about 95% of all the tourism movement on land, air, and sea on Viti Levu and some other islands. As tour and transport operators, we provide a very important role in the safe and reliable transfer of all our visitors to and from their experience of our destination. The experience remains an important element in their overall impression of our destination. And we try to provide the best service in constantly improving our standards. So how can we strengthen our tourism products in Fiji? I think we need to build an industry that is resilient, productive, and focuses on quality. Marketing of the Fiji brand in the traditional markets to explore the untapped potential, also targeting new and emergency markets wherever our airline is connecting us to. And talking to the tourism minister this week, the aim is an additional 5,000 beds in the near future. I think it's a good start, I think a good start would be to invest in our infrastructure first, and that will lead to investment in the tourism industry. Tourism creates jobs, strengthens the local economy, and contributes to local infrastructure development, and can help to conserve the natural environment and culture assets and the traditions to reduce the poverty and inequality. So there's so many untapped tourism areas in Fiji, which I think, like the rural tourism, or up in the mountains, the highlands, so many villages up there, which do not get the attention, like, for example, the ones down along the coast, the urban tourism, sports tourism, and the shopping tourism. Like, in relation to this, for example, when the Chinese coming, or especially the East countries like Russia, they like to shop expensive, and due to a study, there are not enough high-end products to shop for them in Fiji. So we can change that. We can try to get them over. So the three primary factors influence the level of nature and heritage tourism demands and overall tourism growth, the growth in specialty travel, which especially I think after COVID has changed, and increasing awareness of and concern for the environment. So lesson learned, I would like to point at the new Tourism Fiji campaign, Happiness Naturally, which features exactly what difference Fiji has from the rest of the world. And this is our people. So I think this is what makes Fiji a special destination. So well done, Tourism Fiji. I gratulate to that. Great campaign. And more what's coming up is, like, I see fark to form, sea to plate, etc. So there is it connects our local agriculture and agriculture to the tourism. For example, the Fiji sea salt, the Fiji peanut butter, obviously my goat milk soap. So this is also the time to nurture the support for our small and medium enterprises. So what we're looking as tour operators, a new tour operator manual came out, which is not compulsory, but tour operators can lean on it. So to provide a better service and elevate our service. And we also working closely on the National Sustainable Tourism Framework, which we have now these open discussions. So what we concentrate on is the service to the customer, the staff training, and sustainability, which is the key, right? I mean, we are in the vehicle movement industry, and I know an engine is an engine, and we're all looking in the long term to change into the e-vehicles, but we need to have the infrastructure first, where to load it, how long can we use it, so that needs to be set up first. Rome hasn't been built in one day, but we try. So we're working on all this, and if you guys have any questions or want to join, you're from the same industry, please don't hesitate to contact us. Our email will be given at the end or in the chat very soon. Thank you so much. I hope is my time up?
Yes. Thank you, Beatrice, for sharing examples and your views on how we can tap into different areas of product and experience development, and how you said that we can use our new branding by Tourism Fiji and also focus on sustainability in terms of development. Thank you so much.
Vinaka.
Colleagues, she'll be staying on for the Q&A as well. You can also put in your questions or any comments in the chat box as we go along. So colleagues, joining us next from Tourism Fiji is Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Lee Howard. Mr. Lee has extensive experience as a successful business leader in the tourism industry, known for driving operational success through strategic planning and development. He is dedicated to creating a positive and high-performing culture for his team and possesses highly effective skills in the designing system and protocols that enable businesses to predict and monitor their performance. Mr. Hawa's success is driven by his focus on achieving results and operational excellence, which he uses to constantly improve business performance. He'll be sharing on key travel insights, product development experience, lesson learned, and how new opportunities to inform future development. Mr. Hawa, you have the floor now. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Jyotisna, for that introduction. And thank you for having me today to speak on behalf of Tourism Fiji. I'm very grateful to be here. And today I'm going to be talking about some of the work that Tourism Fiji is undertaking in tourism product and experience development, especially what lessons can be learned from the past experiences and new opportunities to inform and support future development. So it's no secret that tourism has become an essential contributor to the economies of many countries, and Fiji is no exception. Sorry, guys, there's a bit of noise here. And so Fiji is no exception. For several years, Tourism Fiji has focused on product and experience development to ensure that the country remains a desirable destination for tourists and its economy as it continues to grow. One of the strategies implemented by Tourism Fiji is to increase the diversity of tourism activities and experiences by introducing more adventure activities, cultural experiences, and ecotourism. This move was aimed at providing visitors with unique experiences that they could not get in other tourist destinations. Additionally, improving the quality of existing attractions and services and developing new ones was seen as a critical aspect in enhancing our visitor experience. Through experience development, Tourism Fiji has learned various lessons that are essential for successful product and experience development. One of the lessons learned is that there's a need for more investment in marketing, infrastructure, and services, which is vital in ensuring that visitors have a positive experience. Additionally, working with local businesses, communities, and stakeholders was found to be essential in ensuring successful product and experience development. And finally, there is an understanding of the importance of sustainability in tourism and how to balance environmental protection with economic growth. By applying these lessons, our industry together with Tourism Fiji, we can continue to develop our tourism product and experience. For example, Fiji can focus on creating new experiences that are unique to the country while also improving existing attractions. This move will help ensure that visitors continue to return to Fiji and the country remains a top destination for travelers. Despite the efforts of Tourism Fiji to focus on product and experience development, there are still several challenges that the industry faces. And some of those challenges that the industry faces includes limited infrastructure. So with Fiji being a small island nation with limited infrastructure, particularly in terms of transportation and communication, it limits our country's ability to promote its tourism industry effectively and to transport visitors to different parts of the country. Seasonal fluctuations. Our industry experiences seasonal fluctuations with our peak tourist season occurring during the months of July to September. And during the low season, many tourism-related businesses experience a downturn in the operations, which affects their ability to provide quality services. Competition from other destinations. So Fiji faces stiff competition from other tourist destinations in the region, such as Bali, Thailand, and the Maldives. These destinations offer similar experiences, making it challenging for Fiji to attract visitors who are looking for unique experiences. And then the environmental concerns. So Fiji's tourism industry is heavily reliant on the country's natural beauty, including its pristine beaches, coral reefs, and lush rainforests. However, there is a growing concern about the impact of tourism on the environment. Sustainable tourism practices must be implemented to minimize the impact of tourism on the natural environment. And finally, limited resources. As a developing country, Fiji has limited resources to invest in product and experience development. This limits the country's ability to invest in marketing, infrastructure, and services which are critical for the growth of the tourism industry. Despite these challenges, Tourism Fiji has taken several steps to overcome them. For example, the government has invested in infrastructure development to improve transportation and communication. And additionally, there's been a focus on sustainable tourism practices, which ensures the country's natural environment is protected while providing visitors with quality experience. Lastly, we have a strong focus to have a destination development team set up in the second half of this year that will focus on product and destination development, as well as introducing a sustainability framework in line with GSTC on best sustainable practices so as to ensure we're not greenwashing our industry. Having a dedicated destination team will allow us to work closely with the industry to enhance the overall visitor experience and provide further support to everyone in this particular space. Just before the meeting started, ladies and gentlemen, Alicia had asked me, sorry, it was Marita that had asked me on how does this fit in with Tourism Fiji's Where Happiness Comes Naturally campaign. So essentially, the campaign focuses on promoting Fiji as a destination where visitors can experience authentic and natural happiness through a range of activities, including relaxing on our pristine beaches, immersing themselves in local culture, and connecting with nature. This campaign can have several implications for product and destination experience, and I've quickly jotted down 4 points that fits in line with our campaign. So promoting authenticity. The campaign focuses on natural happiness, promoting authenticity, which means providing visitors with experiences that are genuine and unique to Fiji. And this can be achieved through the creation of product and destination experiences that celebrates local culture, cuisine, and natural environment of Fiji. Second point, advancing sustainable tourism. So Fiji's natural environment is one of its biggest draw cards for tourists, and the Where Happiness Comes Naturally campaign highlights the importance of preserving this environment. As such, product and destination experiences should aim to minimize the impact on the environment and promote sustainable tourism practices. Creating unique experiences. So this campaign emphasizes the idea that visitors to Fiji can experience natural happiness in a way that is not possible elsewhere. Product and destination experience can be designed to create unique and memorable experiences that tap into this feeling of natural happiness, such as island hopping tours, cultural experiences, and ecotourism activities. And finally, personalizing experiences. Our campaign suggests that visitors can find happiness in their own way, and this can be reflected in the design of products and destination experiences. Personalized experiences can be created that cater to different visitors' interests and preferences, such as adventure activities, luxury experiences, and cultural immersion. Overall, our campaign of Where Happiness Comes Naturally suggests that product and destination experiences should focus on authenticity, sustainability, uniqueness, and personalization to create a sense of natural happiness for visitors. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Howard, for sharing on industry challenges in terms of product development. As you have highlighted and from previous PPD discussions, we have also noted that one of the drawbacks is in terms of infrastructure for the industry to develop their products and experiences. And we also look forward to working with your destination management team to develop Fiji as a destination. Thank you so much for joining us today to share your views. Colleagues, joining us next is Tevaka Fiji Managing Director, Mr. James Soane. He has a degree in Bachelor of Commerce and International Tourism from Lincoln University, New Zealand. He is the Managing Director for Tevaka, previously known as Pacific Destinations Fiji. He is also Chairman for the Land Transport Authority Board. Mr. Soane, you have the floor, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Valavina, everyone from Nandi, Bula, and in my Lawan dialect, I say Malo Bula. Bula to all some very familiar faces here. Thank you for the opportunity. My talk is not as structured, but I'm just going to share my experiences in my 24 years of our business. And I'll just try and stick to the topic so that it's relevant to the purpose. So apologies in advance if I seem to jump all over the place. For our business post-COVID, as all businesses have had time to reflect on their priorities, one of the areas we have decided to focus on is the conference and incentives market, or MICE market, as some would say. And in doing this, there's a lot of learnings that we knew or sort of knew from our experience pre-COVID, but what is emerging now with groups that are coming in Fiji in numbers, big numbers. And one of the on a 5-day itinerary in Fiji, where a day or so is allocated to meetings, a day out on an island, which is, even if it's for groups or FIT or for the individual travelers, that's always the two main components of the experience. Is a day out on an island for snorkeling and water sports activities, or a village experience. And I'm glad that Lee and the team have already alluded to that. That remains. Those two are the two main leading, and I'd be interested to see how the the latest International Visitor Survey, IVS, the visitor behavior and what they give us as their intent. But from our experience, those are the two main ones. So I'll focus, the islands are very well managed by private organizations. And for us, it's the village experience that needs a bit of work. And I know my good friend who's speaking after me, Mr. Jay White, he's the person to give us some living example of how to make it work after 20 plus years of his operation, but I leave that to him. Just sharing from my experience. A few years ago, I partnered with a village close to in Navua, and the attraction was a beautiful waterfall that they thought they owned. And for us, it was an opportunity because we had a lot of guests that would be from the Coral Coast hotels. It would be a natural appeal for them because it's not so far. And on that point, we must note that the tolerance travel time for a lot of the visitors is not much, for their holiday period. So I think from 40 minutes to an hour and a half, I would say that would be the max in terms of how far out they would go to one of these experiences. So this was within the boundary. And fast tracking 8 years, I worked with this village from scratch. They had no understanding of what it takes to host visitors. So I didn't have the resources to reach out. I did reach out to some of the government departments, but no response. So instead of waiting for them, we just went out and did many visits and many Angona sessions in terms of training, the expectations, the visit expectations, what we do as a company to market the service, and what we do to sort of complete the deal and sell the product when visitors are here or before they come. It ran very successfully for 8 years, a lot of hard work, and it got to the point where we partnered with a couple that seemed reliant, and I'm sure Jay will share this. You got to identify someone who's reliant within the village, and then they become your go-to people. So we leaned on this couple, and we actually financed their boat, their river boat, and so forth. But the structure became like they got to Navua, long boat ride to the village, met by a group of warriors into the village hall. If there was a death in the village, then we changed the itinerary around, do the ceremony. There's a village tour. We had to train the tour guides on how to guide groups. And then we went up to this beautiful waterfall. They had a swim, came back to the village for lunch, and then back to Navua. So it was very successful. However, I'm here in Nandi, and they're almost 3 hours away from me. It's hard for me to be with them every time. So what happened was, as their venture sort of started to grow successfully, the village dynamics started to kick in. And after a while, we had the warriors forming their own group. They wanted to be paid directly, not through the village fund. Then the women who displayed artifacts, we asked the village women, stop buying from Jacks and reselling. Come up with your own handicraft that you're known for. So they started. We had to ask the men, please, you're strong enough, get some boo instead of the cordial, get some boo and sell it for $5, which they were surprised. They were able to sell easily for $5. But then all these groupings, so we had these groupings, the serenaders, the dancers, and then all of a sudden they started to come directly to me separately and asking if they can just be paid directly into their own account. So I started to sense some issues of, the whole model breaking up, but because there's no leadership, and and when money is involved, everything evolves, everything changes. So a challenge for us is the Itauke community, that the capacity, the structure needs to be set right from the beginning, and that's after a while it got a bit too much for me to handle. So I gave them time. You either fix yourself, or we have to put a stop to this, because it was straining our relationship. So unfortunately, it didn't sort of end well. They couldn't come to an agreement, so I had to sort of kindly remove ourselves. So that is a real life example of how we tried to make a village project work. Our learnings from that was, it'd be interesting to see the new administration in terms of their commitment towards cooperatives. I know there's a minister responsible for cooperatives. the Fijian affairs in terms of the structure. Where from the Itoke structure, where a family or toka as we refer to, or an individual or an ebusa can lease a particular a site, whether it's a waterfall or whether it's a hot spring or whatever. They could lease it and then run it within a village and sustain it, so that it takes the pressure of the likes of us who have other roles to play, such as marketing the product and transacting the sales and so forth, and bringing the tourists to the attraction. So that is a challenge that we can discuss, that I leave to the team to push on with the relevant authorities. The other requirement, or the other request we're getting a lot from groups for the conference incentive market is the CSR, and that's they would like to contribute to the local communities. And for us as a company, and for me as an Itoke, I've always focused on education, and our call to action has always been assisting the educational needs on the ground. So we've done some successful projects with villages within Nadi and Sigatoka, focusing on learn to read. The last successful one we did last year was, firstly, I tell them, don't give money directly. We'll manage the needs. So we gather the wish list from the various schools who are deserving of the support. And the successful one we did last year, which I'm very proud of, was a pre-examination tutorial classes we ran for various villages. And the company said, we'll just give you a whole pot of funds and you manage it. So we chose various schools. We worked with the teachers in terms of getting the students. We provided transport after school, because as you know, in villages, the Itoke children don't have study desks in their home. And so we provided a central place where they can get to. We hired the village hall, provided chairs, tables, and they got to study from 7 to 8 for the seniors, and earlier for the primary school, for the year 8, because that was their first exams. And it was very successful. And we got the teachers and the mothers to be involved with the refreshments. And then the teachers followed up with our template of reporting on the results, which we now have. And we're submitting it back to the donors who are committed for this year again. So that's the way for us as a company. It's a direct impact on a need, particularly education, and learn to read. Most of you know it's an issue in Fiji where children cannot read. So that's been our focus in terms of partnering with local communities. So that's on schools. It'd be good if through this forum, to talk to the Ministry of Education. I always feel, because there's no process, how do we contact schools? Is it through Ministry of Education? My fear on that, and I hope no ministry is online. My fear on that is that it'll just stop, that momentum will just stop with the ministry, because nothing's going to happen, no one's going to make decision. So we just go directly to the principal, thinking that's the right thing to do, and make sure that parents and the school committee is involved. So the challenge for that too is making sure the schools manage the capital projects that's being funded, and not just a one day feel good project, but it has to be managed on a daily basis, so that other groups that come, they see it's been kept and maintained well. So that has been and I'm sorry, I'm going a bit over time, but that, ladies and gentlemen, are real life examples that we are still managing on a day-to-day basis. Kindergarten we've got another one for May. So we've got a whole lot of school projects for this year. And some of them involves playgrounds, classroom refurbishment, and all of that. So it'd be good for the Ministry of Education to have, I know this is dreaming, but a database of schools within the 1.5 hour radius of various hotels on what are their needs, what are the capital needs. Because we are all aware, for the last 8 years, schools are not allowed to fundraise for capital projects. So those are the challenges, but we work through them, and just sort of make it happen. Because at the end of the day, it's the children that benefit. So hopefully that's given some relevant input to the discussion in terms of communal and supporting local communities and the various challenges.
Thank you, Mr. Sawane. And yes, in terms of school visits, yes, we have to walk through Ministry of Education to get approvals and all. But we can also see after the PPD how we can work into getting a database and all for operators to help out with the school projects. Maybe we can have a separate discussion on this as well. And also for sharing your experience and constraints in terms of training communities and operators in giving good Vista experience. Last week, we had the Director SME and Cooperatives, Mr. Isofo, joining us for the session, and he had shared opportunities that's available for the operators to tap into in terms of product development. So it was a very good session, and if we want, we can share his contact details and all so that they can reach out to him. Thank you, sir. Colleagues, our next speaker is Singateka River Safari Managing Director, Mr. Jay White. He started Singateka River Safari in 2006, and he's the founder and chairman for Fiji Coral Coast 7 since 2010. He's also a board member for MSF and Biosecurity Authority of Fiji. He'll be presenting on Destination Coral Coast, sharing his experience on product development, constraints, and opportunities to strengthen future development. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Vinaka, thank you for the opportunity. I guess just following on from what James says, I guess I might touch on some similar subjects, but also I'm very happy with the fact that Tourism Fiji are embracing what we're doing, in particular here with the Singateka River Safari. I'm a living testament to the fact the power of the Fijian culture. You know, like I came to Fiji as a 13-year-old boy in 1991, and it was from that experience where I'm basically now living the dream in Fiji. I came here, I met a security guard at the resort who took me and my family up into the interior, up into Navosa, and it was from that experience. That's how I fell in love with Fiji, the people and the culture. And that's what brought me back so many times until I eventually moved back to follow the dream. And so I guess that really ties into what Tourism Fiji are now trying to embrace in terms of the experiential experience for people coming to Fiji. You know, it's all about having that point of difference for visitors. You know, they've got so many destinations to choose from around the world. Why should they choose Fiji? And I know from my perspective, it was my connection to the people, the connection to what I call my village that brought me back to Fiji so many times. And I think Fiji is one of those magical places where majority of the time people that will come once will more than likely come twice or thrice, and in many cases a whole lifetime. So in terms of, for me in product development, I was very fortunate that in 1991, after visiting Fiji, I was lucky enough to go to New Zealand and jump on a jet boat and have this experience on a river in the North Island, which I really loved. And it was basically these two ideas flooded my mind of, originally it was actually bringing the villagers down from Rainbow on a jet boat down to Singateka town to do their shopping and go back up. That was what it was as a 13-year-old innocent kid. And then, 12 years later at reaching sort of a crossroads of life, that original idea came flooding back into my mind. And, I thought, well, instead of bringing the villagers down, how about I give people a chance to experience what I did and see the heart and soul of Fiji. And one of the things that I'm very conscious of in particular is just the perception of people of the interior, the saying about being a kaidolo. I really wanted to flip that around and make people have a sense of pride of being a koiata. And over the time, we've done many things through sports and other pursuits to really show the power of the people that call the interior home. Basically, like I said, merging those two ideas to create the idea of the river safari. I contacted my friend Peter, who I met as a 13-year-old kid. We'd been friends for all that time, told him the idea, and he said who I needed to go and speak with in the village. And that's one of the things that I really wanted to do first is seek the traditional approvals prior to seeking the bureaucratical approval. And I think that's put us in good stead. I think for any business that seeks to work with the Vanua, you should always do things the traditional way first. I think that just shows the necessary respect that they obviously deserve. It's helped me infinitely in my time. And so we did the traditional approvals first, went and saw the chiefly houses along the river from Rainbow all the way down to Singatoka town. And then we got the approval from government second. In that time, I've reached out to a boat builder in New Zealand, getting ideas on cost of boats and all that sort of thing. I then actually, Universe worked in a great way for me. It put me in touch with the founder, or what we call the pioneer of safari jet boating in New Zealand, and I was able to use his skills and knowledge, and he became a mentor for me. So for anyone out there that's sort of in the early stages of pursuing a business, I think finding a mentor is invaluable. So if you're able to tap into the knowledge of someone who's already done this before, I would certainly suggest that you take advantage of that. And one of the things that I was very conscious of in terms of, for my business, the River Safaris, I wanted to work with not only one village, but we now work with 18 villages, because we didn't want the villages that we work with to rely on tourism. We wanted it to be I guess, something that was beneficial to them without being solely dependent on it. And, that was proved evident to be a positive during COVID-19, that the villages were able to continue their day-to-day living without missing the tourism aspect too much. We're now, as I said, working with 18 villages, and we've done that on a rotational basis. So for Monday through Saturday, each village has one day of the week for 4 months of the year. Then they rest for the other part of the year. That allows them to do their traditional farming and other activities to supplement the tourism dollar as well. And in that time, we've been operating now since March 2006, so we're coming up on 17 years. We've been able to build wonderful relationships with our previous speaker, James Sawane, with Te Waka, some of the amazing conference groups that they brought through. They had a group last year, the Australian Hotels Association, that donated a footpath for one of the villages that we work with. In the years gone by, we've done lots of things around education. That's obviously James talked about. It's very important that you're developing the next generation. We've done a lot of stuff with kindergartens, high schools, primary schools, lots of stuff through donations. We had two 20-foot containers come out of Waverley College that went direct to Navosa Central College. And it's one of those things that as you grow and your network grows, you'll be surprised how many people actually come to you directly wanting to make a difference. And that's one of the things that we're most proud of with what we do on a day-to-day basis, that we've been able to see the real differences reach to the upper regions of the Singatoka Valley, right up to Keasi and Rainbow, all the way down to Mavua. So it's that's some of the tremendous benefits that we've seen over the time. We've been able to do a lot of stuff through sports tourism, sponsoring rugby teams, netball teams, athletics. And that's one of the things I think you should always embrace, the people's passion, so to speak. And that's what's enabled me in terms of my business. It's had many offshoots. One of them in particular was getting involved with the Hotels Association of the Coral Coast, where we started a marketing subcommittee to promote the region, working collectively rather than in isolation of each other. We wanted to embrace our identity. One of the things that we talked about was having a tagline, which is where tradition, culture, and nature meet, which we felt summarized the Coral Coast region. And then from that, we decided we needed to have an event to promote the region in what was considered quieter time of the year. So we created the Coral Coast Sevens, and that was back in 2010. We've just celebrated the 11th chapter of the Coral Coast Sevens. We've seen wonderful growth in that competition itself. And that's all, again, tied into what I mentioned earlier about the people's passion. Rugby, Singatoka town is synonymous with rugby. It's why it's known as the rugby town. And I think for any business, you should always focus on your strengths. I think you should also embrace your points of difference. Don't try and be like someone else. If being different makes you stand out. And so, yeah, I feel that Tourism Fiji are doing a wonderful thing now with what Lee talked about in terms of really highlighting the opportunities that exist in Fiji that are different from other destinations. And as I said earlier, I'm a living testament to the power of that connection to the Fijian culture. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your story and experience. And you can see how a good experience can be turned into a product. Also on sharing on the importance of tradition, culture, and passion to be embedded in the product and experience that we offer. Thank you, sir, for joining us today. Our final speaker for the day, colleagues, are Nukumbati Private Island and Great Sea Reef divers, Miss Lara and Miss Leon. Miss Lara, she is the owner and general manager of Nukumbati Island Resort. She is also a dive master and dive guard. And with Great Sea Reef diver, she is from Australia. She's an Australian and she also has Fijian heritage from Maduata and is a strong activist for coastal environment and the ocean. And Mr. Leon, he is the owner of and dive instructor of Great Sea Reef divers in Maduata. He is from Lingaulevu village, Mali Island. His dive operation has been running for 11 years, originally out of his village in Mali, but now he is based at Nukumbati Island Resort. He also co-manages Nukumbati with his wife, Lara. So colleagues will be presenting on destination Maduata, sharing experiences on product development, constraints, and new opportunities. Thank you for joining us. You have the floor now.
Bula Sia, my name is Lara, and this is Leone. So yeah, we'll be highlighting really product development and experiences, but specific to the Maduata region, which is where we are based and where we both grew up. So yeah, we feel very privileged that we are going to be talking on our home today. But yeah, so Leone and I really feel that there's a lot of potential in Maduata for ecotourism operations and ecotourism ventures to start up. And I can highlight a few. So one being that we have the world's third largest barrier reef system up here in Maduata, which we call in Fijian, the Kaulevu. It's the Great Sea Reef. We also have our unique Kuta ponds. So this is a reed that weavers weave mats and handicrafts, and this is very significant to the Maduata region. We also have our whole coastline in Maduata is still very much intact with mangrove ecosystems. So this really has potential to also be explored and researched. We have several locations of hot springs in Maduata, which is really only known to the locals. And of course, we have our local town, which is Lambasa. And for those who know it, it's a very colorful town, and it's where you can really experience all of our cultures that we have in Fiji. We have authentic Indo-Fijian restaurants. Also, if you visit our fish market, it's where you can meet people from all over Maduata, even right down in Bua. They come all the way to our fish market. So it's such a nice spot to just go and sit and hear stories about the whole coastline. There's also the Lambasa River. It's like our hub for outer island communities. So there's lots of boats that come in on the Lambasa River. You can meet lots of people there. This has then encouraged food stall vendors to open up along the riverbanks, so you can get really nice local food. And we also have the sugar industry. There are pros and cons with that, but it's very much part of our culture in Lambasa and also the whole of Maduata, because both of our cultures, the Indo-Fijians and Itokes, it's very much part of their livelihood, and it's something that they look forward to every year to participate in. So although we have so many of these like opportunities, there are challenges that we face for really like tourism entrepreneurs or even just business entrepreneurs to set up in the Madawatta region. And the list that I will say, you probably already know, but I can name a few, which is roads. So more than 50% of the roads in Madawatta are still dirt tracks or they're gravel roads. So it's very hard for people to access a market, or travel just takes too long. You know, it can take a whole day to get to town. Or if there's bad flooding, then the roads get bogged and then you can't go up to meet somebody or a customer. We also have lack of network and phone signal. So again, majority of Vanua Levu is still not in phone signal range. Even places that you have phone signal, there's no data signal, so you can't access internet. So you can't go onto apps like M-Paisa to make payments. So this is extremely difficult for people who are trying to sell their products or sell, you know, to a market. Another thing is electricity. More than 50% of Vanua Levu doesn't have electricity. So, I mean, you can try and imagine trying to run a business with no electricity. It's very, very hard. So most of Vanua Levu is still in this condition. There's also transport. There's really no reliable source of transport. I mean, we don't have companies like Pacific Bus Company. For tourists, we don't have anything like Te Waka. So it's really hard to get from point A to B. You kind of have to know people, you have to know local information to get around Vanua Levu. Yeah, so it's, as you can see, I've just listed that it's very, very hard. There's so much potential. There are products available, but there's just nothing to join people to a market or to customers. So in terms of Nukumbati, where Leone and I are based, Nukumbati Resort, we've been running for 32 years now. And how my parents set it up back in 1990 was really to be as self-sufficient as possible because of our location. We're located in an area that has nothing, no electricity, no water access. So we set up Nukumbati to be solar powered. And this was back in 1990. I think we were probably one of the first resorts to run on solar. We also collect all our water from the rain. So we have enough water tanks on the island to hold about 900,000 liters of water. And this lasts us whole year. I know that sounds like a lot, but we have about 6 to 8 months of drought throughout the year. So we need to be able to hold that much water to run a business. In terms of food, we've just had to serve local food. And really our tourists love that. They love that the fact that we are serving authentic Fijian food. So we try and grow most of our food on the island, or we source it just from our local communities. We buy a lot of seafood. We buy all our veggies just from local markets. And most of our activities, you know, they're really nature-based activities. So we do things like Fijian medicine walk. When we have the big low tides during a full moon or a new moon, we take guests out to Vivili on the reef flats so they can collect all the seashells and octopus. We take them out to go spearfishing with a traditional spear, and they bring everything back and throw it on an open fire, which we call tatavu. And they can experience actually collecting their own food and cooking it on the same day. So these are the kind of experiences we have to offer. Again, because of our location, we don't have access to, you know, other sources to come up with a overseas activity. We really have to work with what's around us, our environment. Yeah, so that's also why we're part of the group Duavata, because that's really our vision. Our vision is about creating a business and supporting our local environments with our business. Yeah. Leone?
Mabulisya everyone. My name is Leone and Great Chief Reef Divers. I just want to talk about how I started the business. It's from I started my business in Mali in Lingolevo village. It's easy for me. I don't have to pay rent. As a small company, it's really hard to find a place in Lambasa. And yeah, and I'm lucky that now I relocated. I moved down to Nukumbati Island Resort. But I want to talk about challenges that I'm facing. One is rubbish. I think in town we have our rubbish dam closer to the river. When it's flooded, it's all washed away and it's all end up in the reef. And when taking out divers, it's really embarrassing to see all these plastic bottles and everything that's floating. And another thing is a lack of information for farming, do proper farming, because of when it's raining, you know, now we doing grove or cover, we cutting down trees and sugarcane, and when it's raining, it's washed into a river, the mud washed into a river and then end up into our reef. So yeah, I think it's a lack of information for doing proper farming. And in Lambasa, is I think the tourism industry should know. Tourism industries in Lambasa is not well known. That is a biggest challenge, like lack of information in Lambasa and there's no jetty like to access when there's a divers, when they book for me to come and pick them up to take out diving. There is no jetty, a proper place for picking them up to go out diving, or just for like hiring a boat or picnic. It's really hard when it's low tide. And moving down to Nukumbati, as I see as Lara mentioned, the road, yeah, it's a really bad road. And when it's, I think for the guests, when they fly from US, it's 10 hours, and then they fly over to Lambasa, and then to come down here for 1.5 hours on the potholes and loose gravel, they won't like it. So this is another challenge that I'm facing down here. And another challenge that I'm facing is when I'm trying to renew my license. I think there is no office. Before I used to go to PA, Maduata, but now they send me to BDM office, and they thought that I'm doing beach dima diving. So that shows that tourism in Lambasa is not really known. So they thought that I'm another company that I'm doing beach dima diving, and they have to send me everywhere. But at the end, I just give up. So yeah, that's another thing, like beach dima diving. They collecting beach dima, and then when it's small wind, that's affecting the visibility, because beach dima is a vacuum cleaner, as we know. But yeah, that's another problem. Another problem is a phone signal. When we have an emergency, we can't contact the resort because there is no phone signal. So we have to cross our fingers and then wait for other fishing boat to come over, and then we send a message. I think that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lara Leone, for sharing your story and the opportunities for ecotourism in Maduata region. Noting the challenges, I think this will greatly contribute towards the development of the National Sustainable Tourism Framework. Once again, thank you so much to the panelists for joining us today and sharing your experience in this space. Colleagues, we have come to an end for part 1 of our session. Now we will be moving to part 2, which is Q&A. My co-facilitator, Ms. Alice Lutu, tourism consultant from IFC, will now take us through the Q&A session. Over to you, Alice.
Naka Jyoti, and firstly, big welcome to our panel. I think we've heard some great stories and experiences from our panel, and it just shows the years of experience that they've all had in their different spaces. And we're so grateful to be able to have different representations even from the regions out in Vanua Levu, the work in the Coral Coast, And also, congratulations to Tourism Fiji with a new brand and the campaign. And I'm sure it's so much for us to look forward to as an industry. And obviously we've got, constraints that are not new, but obviously, this is the reason why we have this webinar, so we can collect the feedback from you all to help us inform the development of the National Sustainable Tourism Framework. So we have about 1 hour for our Q&A session. Again, our panel is Beatrice Nas from SOFTA, Lee Howard from Tourism Fiji, James Sowane from Te Waka Fiji, Jay White from Simatoka River Safari, and Lara Burke and Leone Wokai from Nukumbati Island Resort and Great Sea Divers. We'll go straight to the 2 questions that's on the chat box right now. Again, to all our audience, please put in your questions and your comments, and we can address them straight after this. You can also pose your questions directly to the panel, so we'll give you time for that. The first question we had is from Rossi Mbevu, and her question is directed to James, Mr. James Sowane. Her question is, can we offer the community food demonstration and herbal therapy to avoid diabetes? And if yes, how? James? We just have you unmute.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not really sure how to answer that, to be honest. If it's I'm not sure. The question, is it to the village or to the visitors? Because if it's to the visitors, we and as Jay and others who have spoken, we're very particular in terms of what we offer tourists to sort of take as either drink or food. And the last thing we want is someone taking herbal medicine and they are down with some sort of a reaction for the rest of their stay. So, but if it's to the villages, of course, definitely that we'll all be in full support of that. And as Jay has mentioned, he reaches a lot of villages directly each and every day. So, yeah, sorry, that's not a very good answer, but my point there is that we're very controlled in what we give to tourists. Thank you.
Naka James. Rosie, I hope that's answered your question. If you want to have a follow-up question on that, but I think what I'm getting from Rosie's question is really what's the standard requirement for villages or communities. Okay, Rosie, you got your hand up. You can unmute yourself and ask your questions directly to James. Naka.
Vinaka, Mr. Sowane, I'm a naturopath by profession. Why I'm asking is this is for the villages, not for the visitors. Is there any procedures, or I can just come into the villages and do my self-serve, or how do you like what you're doing with your education?
Yeah, of course, for us, we're always happy to introduce you to the villages. And as I mentioned, Mr. White has connection all along the Simatoka River, and not only us, but Mr. White and of course the speakers, Lara and Leone. So definitely from Te Waka, yeah, happy to work with you on that, Naka.
Oh, okay. Can I ask another question before I log off?
Go ahead.
Okay. I would love to do. I'm on the process at the moment doing a medicine farm tour at Vunda Bypass. For those who know the 2-lane fast lane, so I'm right beside the road. Due to the cars running fast here, how can you help me to reduce? I've done writings to the FRA, but there's no luck. and I'm worried that it might affect what I'm doing. I'm trying to do this medicine farm tour. So what's your help on that due to the road, the cars, maybe I can say the limitation of, because I think it's only 80 kilometers per hour at the moment, and I've asked them to reduce because there are houses along the way, but there's no answer from FRA, and no luck from them. Any help I can get from?
Thank you. Wearing my LTA hat. So my LTA hat. LTA does not have any control on the roads nor the speed allocation. So, but however, we can. My email is with the team. You can just send me a note. I have a meeting tomorrow with our LTA team. I can sort of raise that and see if we can have another go with your concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Swane. That's all. Vinaka.
Naka.
Nakarosi. Thank you, Race. Would you like to unmute and please state your organization and who would you like to direct your question to? Darren Fisher?
Oh, sorry. Hi. I represent several companies. One of them is Rainforest Eco Lodge, and we have another company called Fiji Chemicals. This is a question to the tourism partners out there. With Fiji Chemicals, we run a CSV program, so Creating Shared Values program, and several of them, and a couple of them are linens for life, where we take discarded linens from hotels that are torn and whatever, that aren't used anymore, and we team up with women's community groups to get them to make stuff for the hotels, and for donations that we give out to our various partners. For example, Father Law Home, Catted, and we're in the process of doing about 2,000 sheets for the CWM hospital. If there's anyone out there that's willing to partner with us, and also another program called Soap for Hope, which basically does the same thing, takes discarded soap from hotels, and we train the women how to repurpose them and make artisan soap, and then some of the hotels buy it back, and the balance they sell on. So yeah, just that. If anyone's interested in partnering with us, more than happy to have a talk afterwards.
Sorry, Darren, I'd love to get more information on that from Tourism Fiji's perspective. We're always looking at sustainability initiatives. So if you could please connect with me in that regard, and we'd love to look into that opportunity a little bit more.
Yep, sounds good. Will do.
And a great initiative from your side, Darren. Well, and can contact you. So feel free to share your contact on the chat box so they can reach out to you easily.
Will do. Thanks.
So team, if again, just encouraging everyone, if you've got any questions that you want to pose to the panel, please do so now. You can raise your hand. They're all very busy people, and we're extremely blessed that we're able to make their time to be with us today. So I know there's some really interesting topics, questions, especially for operators out in the community and the rural areas that want to pose questions directly to the panel. Please do so. If not, you can put your comments directly in the chat box. Any questions? Looks like everybody's very, very happy with what's been shared.
Alicia, if I may just add to the overall forum, this year at FTE, we're looking at having a symposium that's going to focus on product and destination development. And I think it'd be a real good opportunity to let everyone in our industry know that there's going to be some workshops at FTE that's going to look at how do we help small SMEs and other businesses in our industry to leverage of what Tourism Fiji is essentially doing. So, for example, there's going to be a digital workshop where we'll have Matt Niccolo, who's our head of digital, that's going to be doing a session on leveraging off our digital platform. I'll talk a little bit about product and destination development. So I think it'd be a real good opportunity for a lot of the SMEs out there to connect with Tourism Fiji, as we'd really love to, one, amplify your business and give you the exposure that you need, and two, provide as much resources as we can in order for you to leverage and gain that exposure. So I hope that's of interest to many of the businesses that are out there, and please feel free to reach out to myself if you'd like to know more about the program for FTE this year. Naka.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Lee, for sharing that. And again, I think just for the audience sake, we'll be sending the email addresses for our panel in case you want to contact them directly after the webinar. So again, posing any questions, comments from the floor, since we have our fantastic panel of experts. You know, again, this is a great opportunity to ask questions. I think probably something on the product development side from communities, you know, and I know James and Jay, you shared your experiences, especially working with communities. We had a session on strengthening tourism linkages last week, and we were fortunate to have the MSME director as well. There was a question, more so a comment that was posed, and it came from, I think, Matilita from Domoika Adventures. And, you know, some of the questions that communities have is, you know, what is the best business model for them? You know, how do they navigate, you know, working within their matangalis to, you know, especially when you're looking at issues that could come up as an issue later down the line, whether it's the finances, people within, you know, certain members of the matangali undercutting the rest of the matangali, and also the opportunities for cooperatives was also discussed, and there also the opportunity from the IHRDP program in terms of funding and assisting MSMEs that are based out in the community. So I think that's an interesting topic, and I think more needs to be discussed on that. I think it was quite, okay, sure, very good.
Sorry, Alicia, just to jump in on that, because I know that while we have people like James and Jay on the call, particularly in the experiences you've shared in terms of supporting communities with product and experience development. James, you mentioned something when you spoke about you know, kind of reaching out to government, and because we're talking about ideas for the National Sustainable Tourism Framework, one of the conversations that came up last week is that often there are multiple voices trying to advise communities. You know, this might be private sector partners, this might be government, this might be the PAs or the DOs, and that they don't often, or they don't always receive the same messages from the different people that are trying to assist. So I just wondered if either James, Jay, or Lara Leone, or anybody else who's spoken has any reflections on that, and what you think would be an appropriate, or what you think is a good model in terms of trying to ensure policy coherence across the various government agencies that, with very good intentions, try and assist, but don't necessarily always land it. correctly, if that's paraphrasing some of the conversations we had last week. So I don't know if James, Jay, Lara, or Leonie would want to jump in and reflect on that, or Lee, or any of the speakers.
Thank you, Marita. I think Mr. White would be the best person to give an insight on that. He's encountered all of these issues over the last 17 plus years. So Ratu, over to you.
Vinaka, James, nice hand pass. I guess, you know, I can only speak from my experience in terms of, I guess, in dealing with government. As I mentioned earlier, I did everything the traditional way first, which I felt has been hugely beneficial in dealing with, you know, even if it's conflict within the Matangalis, where you're talking about the human element of jealousies, which is just a human condition. It happens all around the world. One of the things that we did in terms of trying to navigate that issue is trying to be seen to be fair and equal to all. In terms of what Marita's asking in regards to dealing with government, we have at all turns tried to work with government. In particular, like I'll give an example where in the beginning we came in, started an operation which hadn't existed before in Fiji. There was a jet boat operator up in Denarau, but in terms of what we were doing going into the interior, they'd never seen this sort of vessel on the water, and we had to work with the then PHIMSA, which is now MSAF. We invited them out to site to see the what we're doing, the operation. And I know that's, if you can, for anyone dealing with government, I think that's always beneficial when people can actually see what it is that you're talking about, as opposed to sitting in a desk in Suva and trying to understand the reality on the ground. It's always important that people see it firsthand. So we invited PHIMSA out. We had about 5 different people from different, obviously different positions within PHIMSA. They came out there, we handed them what was our SOP. We were basically adopting the New Zealand standard to Fiji. That was back in 2006. Fast forward the clock, in 2014, MSAF basically formalized that and adopted what was the Maritime Rule 80, Maritime Rule 82 to Fiji. So that's one example of working with government to, you know, bring that element in line with best practice, best standards for us in what we're doing. I know for other government entities, the same thing. You know, at the end of the day, the governments, they can only work within what is legislated, but they can obviously try and work with you to make you compliant. I know at the end of the day, public service, that's the name, public service. They're there to serve the public. When we're all trying to do the right thing and you know, meet our legal obligations in terms of our operations. But the best recommendation or the best advice I can give is always to have that dialogue and invite key decision makers to see the operation, speak from their first-hand experience, their first-hand interactions with what you're doing. I hope that sort of touches on what you're referring to, Marita.
Naka Jay, very useful.
Naka Jay. We have Honorina with her hand up. Honorina, you can unmute, and Bula Bula from Sydney.
Bula Lisi, thank you so much. My initial thing to do was to ask, I think it was Lee who said Tourism Fiji is going to run some sort of a digital workshop. And I wanted to ask Lee if we could somehow be involved in that, because we have a digital tourism program, right? And very passionate about Fiji and how we can help. But as I was waiting to be called, Marita mentioned something about messaging out to everyone and how sometimes, you know, and I think, I don't know whether this is a Fijian trait, but I think we get so excited because we see opportunities And sometimes we want to do too many things all at once. But one thing I've learned in my job here at Pacific Trade Invest Australia, my boss is always telling me to stay in my lane. And what this means is I have my remit, and whatever I do, I have to always, reel it back to what our strategy is and what our vision is, and which is increasing the livelihoods of the Pacific people. So when I come and sit in on these Talanoa sessions, which I appreciate very much, I'm trying to get information and trying to understand on what the operators, what their needs, what their wants are. Not that because we can help in every aspect of it, but in terms of the digital tourism program, how we can help. And as I'm sitting here and I'm listening to, Lara and Leone or Leon, I'm talking about the challenges, the challenges in terms of infrastructure, the challenges in how to get there, challenges in terms of not having access to the internet or that. But that's an opportunity. So from our digital tourism program, we build these websites for you. And one of the things is, with a website, we want you to talk about yourself and to be authentic and to understand exactly who you are. And if you put on your website, this is off the grid, there's no Wi-Fi, there's no access to phones, because for the Australians, they plan. And if they're coming, and they're also adventurers as well. So they know, okay, I'm not going to have any Wi-Fi. I'm not going to have access to all of this. So when I'm planning, I know that for the 1 week that I'm there, any emails, anything has to wait until I get back to civilization. So one is just trying to see whether we can be part of the digital tourism program. And second, just giving you some feedback based on what I'm hearing from all this great work that's been done by, Alicia and Marita and Jyotishna. And second, I also wanted to talk about two things, or if I may, Alicia, you guys mentioned authenticity, yeah? And for Fiji, I think authenticity is not just like the Eat OK. We have different faces of Fiji. We just had the Sydney Sevens recently. We had the Mbula Bar, and there were two feedback from the general public. One feedback was, man, you guys are just happy people, And second, we didn't realize that Fiji had so many different faces. You had the Eat OK gang, you had the Fiji Indian gang with their drums, we had the Kailoma gang in between, the accent, and then we had Fijians with blue eyes and blonde hair, and they go, you guys have Fijians who are blonde-eyed and, blonde hair, and we go, yes, these are generations of people who have been living in Fiji and have become Fijians, and is like the flavor of who Fiji is. And for me, listening to that is like, wow, these are things that we can actually take. And for an operator, if I had a website, these are the things I would draw on to try and sell who I am as a tourism offering, to try and get, customers, which then increase the livelihoods of the, of my business, which comes back to my work. So I just wanted to give that feedback because I think it's great that we have the different faces of Fiji. And at the risk of just talking too long, going back to Lee, if we can help you with the digital tourism workshop, and everyone else who needs some help in the digital tourism space, Alicia has my details, and thank you for just being part of this Talanoa session.
Naka Rina. Again, Rina is from the Pacific Island Trade Invest. They're based out in Sydney. And Honorina, you could probably share your email contact as well in the chat group if you don't mind. Probably Lee will give a chance for you just to respond to Honorina.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to connect with you, Honorina. I think there's plenty of opportunities at FTE for businesses like yourself to be able to showcase their services and products to SMEs and other business entities out there. The whole idea of that workshop is to drive collaboration, networking, and to see where businesses can leverage off Tourism Fiji and our various partners. So 100% absolutely would love to connect you in that area. We're still trying to finalize some panelists for the workshop. So if you could please, I've shared my email in the chat. Everyone, feel free to reach out to me directly and talk to me a little bit about FTE if that's of interest to you. Yeah.
Nakali, thanks for that. I think we have a question from Samsoni Lakau, and so the question is directed to Lee and also the other speakers as well. Is there a written standard in place for Tourism Fiji for offering accommodation and tours, specifically with homestay farms to tourists? Probably I'll give the floor to you, Lee, and then probably
Sure.
Jyoti can come in and probably give an update on the code of
Sure.
conduct from the ministry's perspective. Naka.
Yeah, so to answer the question, no, Tourism Fiji doesn't have a framework for accommodation and the requirements for that. My encouragement to you would be to seek out Fantasia Lockington and her team from Fiji Tourism Hotels and Association. They would have a framework and perhaps a code of conduct on accommodation providers and how they can come on board and what some of those requirements would be. I know last year there was some dialogue with MTCA on the code of conduct for tour operators and attractions. I think Jyotish might probably be the best person to give an update as to where that currently is. There was some stakeholder engagement, and I think Tourism Fiji provided some feedback in regards to that code of conduct. So perhaps MTCA could give an update in that respect.
Essentially, yes, so we have a tourism code of conduct for tourism service providers, which is currently in the development. Most probably by the end of Feb or beginning of March, we will have cabinet approval on this, and we can share more on that. So it's basically, we have 6 areas that we will look into, and once we have the cabinet approval, we will go out in the communities in terms of creating awareness on that. So I can't share much details on this. We have had 2 workshops already where we have consulted the stakeholders. And so most probably by March, we will be sharing this once it's approved by cabinet. We will share it on our website. We will go out in the communities to create awareness on this.
If I just pop in here, this was actually what I was referring to before, that code of conduct for the tour operators. So I'm glad to hear that it's coming up.
Thank you, Beatrice.
Thank you. Thank you, Jyoti. We've got a question here from Laniata, Volovina Laniata, and her question is directed to Mr. James Soane and Mr. Jay White. She's running a Matangali-owned company based in Singatoka, that's the Tabuni Hill Fort, and she finds it difficult to connect with other tour companies to sell their product, as they do not have access to website or social media due to misunderstanding from their previous management. Is there a way which you could, for yourselves, Jay and Mr. James Soane, could assist them in reconnecting with other tour operators or companies?
Yeah, just one of the I guess one of the beautiful things now is that everyone's got access to Facebook for, well, as far as I can tell, it's free for now. There's stories about wanting to charge people in the future, but for now it's free. The best thing to do is probably to create just start off. You talked about there not having a website. You can create a page, talk about reopening of Tabuni Hill Fort. Make sure that you know what you're trying to sell. Is it a guided experience through Tabuni Hill like previously? You then need to go and talk to the various entities such as like Rosie Tours and tour managers and Te Waka and others who can on-sell your product. You'd have to, obviously, like anything, you start small and you build your way up. But if you wanted to come and see me directly, I'm more than happy to try and give you a hand there with restarting Tabuni Hill. It's got a special place in my heart. That's where we got married, my wife and I. So I'm more than happy to give you a hand there.
Thanks so much for that, Jay.
Can I just add on to the agritourism stuff? Just to add on, I think Sami Soni, you were asking about agri-tourism ventures, kind of farm stays and code of conducts. And in addition to what Lee and Jyotishna shared, there's also a few different products that were developed under a project called the Pacific Agribusiness Research and Development Initiative that specifically focused on farm tours. So this supported entities like Bula Coffee, Bulachino Farm, Waitika Farm, Coco Mana, with some product and development expertise and advice. And there is a small Facebook group, which I've put in the chat, and I'll send you the startup guide that was produced through that. One of the challenges, and Alisi was an advisor as part of that program, one of the challenges that we found specifically for the farm tour and farm experience market and for people wanting to offer accommodation is that in many cases, the land tenure structure, so for example, if you have an agriculture lease, the current advice from TLTB is that you need to convert the part of the lease that is where you want to do the tour into a commercial or a tourism lease, which is obviously quite prohibitive for most farmers wanting to offer farm experiences. So that's something that we're continuing to raise with TLTB and others. Because it is a growing segment of the tourism market globally, and it would be great to be able to make that that opportunity available to more of the farmers in the country. So if anybody else on the call has experiences of developing, farm stays and navigating the regulatory framework of getting a hotel license, etc. Feel free to jump in and share your experiences with Sami Soni as well.
If I can add into this, the ministry is also currently working on a proposal with Ministry of Agriculture and UNFAO for a farm to fork proposal, which it's not approved yet, but we're looking at getting the farmers and the chefs into one place in terms of farm tours and other activities within that proposal. So once it's approved in the coming months, we will reach out to stakeholders in terms of partnering with us for this project.
Nakajoti. I think we'll just go back to Lanieta's question. I think we'll give the floor also as well to Mr. James Sowane, if he would like to comment on her question as well in terms of how could Te Waka Fiji probably help in reconnecting Tavuni Hill Forts with other tour companies.
Sorry, Alicia, is that for me?
Yes, yes, Mr. Sowane.
I'm sorry, I had to make a restroom run. Sorry, I missed the start.
Okay, maybe I'll just ask Lani if she could just unmute and probably just ask the question directly. I think it's a really good question as well. Lani, would you like just to ask your questions directly? I know Jay has already responded.
So, Mr. Ioane, I'm Lani. I'm running a Matangali-owned company in Tavuni in Simutoka. It's just 4 kilometers eastbound from Simutoka town. It's Tavuni Hill Fort. It's a Tongan historical site, and I'm just starting now, and it's been run by a board of trustees. So now the board of trustees, I've already had a meeting with them, and they asked me if it's okay to find tools which I can collaborate with to sell the product for the site. So I don't have any access on a website due to website and a social media. We were having a website before and a social media page for a previous manager, and we cannot connect to them because for misunderstanding through our former management. So I'm trying my best to sell my product to other tours, which I don't have a way in how to connect to other tours, to other tours companies so that they can sell my my product. Is there a way that you can assist us for selling our products to other tourist company?
Okay. Okay, Mbula, nice to meet you virtually. I think I'm not sure if you remember, but we had sent a large group there pre-COVID, where we worked with Beatrice company, motorbike rentals, and we did a few days of quad biking through Singatoka River, and then we came up to the Hill Fort where they did a tour, and we had lunch. We set up the lunch for the group there. So this goes back to my comment earlier in the work that we do with conference groups. So we look for unique sites that we can use as off-site venues for lunches, morning teas, and Tavuni was a perfect one, and we took a lot of good pictures there. So I'd be more than happy to sit with you, and congratulations on taking on the venture, and to just to show you how we have used your site, your Mbula, and it's a beautiful site. So I'm glad you're taking it on board. And Mr. Jay and I would be more than happy to help you out. So we can go offline and connect separately, and more than happy. I'm all for Itoke coming into business. So we'd be very happy to help out.
Vinaka.
Could I also just add in my comments as well, sorry, from Tourism Fiji, that we have an industry engagement manager here within our organization, and his role specifically focuses on trying to help newly startup businesses tap into the industry. And we'd love for him to connect with you and look at, what ways and other areas that we could help amplify your business, and perhaps talk you through how to be tourism ready from the perspective of working with inbounders and other business operators. So again, Lanieta, would love to connect with you and just sort of talk you through a little bit about some of the destination development piece that we're working on in that area. So okay.
Nakakalevu, Lee, James and Jay. So great to hear that kind of support for someone who's trying to revitalize what is definitely one of our important historical and cultural sites. Lani is actually part of, just for Lee's information, Lani is part of a tourism accelerator program, which Tourism Fiji are a partner on through Waihe. So Lee, I think your colleagues are actually running a digital marketing session with the group next Monday, lunchtime on the 27th.
That's correct, yes. And I think
yes, and Lani will be part of that group. So if the person you mentioned would also like to join and say hi, that would be fantastic.
Sure, absolutely.
Not everyone. Thanks for that. Lani, I'm sure you're very happy to hear all of this. And if there's any other questions, I think we're still open for another 20-25 more minutes. If there's any more questions from the audience, please put your hands up, and you can unmute yourself and ask directly to the panel. We haven't heard much. Is there any questions for our Maikais from Nukumbati? Lara and Leone shared some also interesting, stories as well of the constraints that they are facing out in Vanole, specifically in Maduata. Is there any questions directly that anyone wants to pose to them? They've been, Nukumbati has been in business for a very long time, and Lara's taken over from her parents as well, from Peter and Jenny Burke. And I'm sure there's some questions or comments that you would like to share. Of the panelists, if you have anything that you want to add on to the discussions, please feel free to do so. Okay. Don't think that there's anything else coming from the floor. So probably what we'll do, we'll just take some last comments from the panel. Any last comments from the panel? So we'll probably just start with Lee.
Fantastic. Well, thank you everyone for joining in on today's session. I think it's been very, very fruitful, very healthy, and I think there's a lot of resources that's available to everyone. Again, I'd love to connect with the many different businesses that are out there. You know, our goal for Tourism Fiji is to look at how do we grow our industry sustainably. I mentioned a little bit about FTE as one option to connect with us, but also we do have regular webinar sessions, our Tourism Talanoa sessions that are usually held sort of quarterly. And generally within these sessions, we provide industry updates from what our region are doing in market. It's also a great chance to look at some of the campaigns and some of the work they're doing, and also how your business can connect with them. We also have a dedicated FAMILS team within our organization where we're continually working with businesses around the country in putting together FAMILS and essentially giving your business that platform, that exposure to be sold as a product. So I think there are some really good opportunities there to connect with us. I've shared my email in the chat, and so please do reach out, and we'd love to connect more. So thank you, everyone.
Makali. James, some last comments from yourself, Naka.
Yeah, Navalevu, thank you. Firstly, thank you again for the opportunity. And just my final comments is that it's great that these sessions are being held and will be taken forth to the relevant forums. It's as I mentioned earlier, COVID has allowed communities and businesses to reset, and everyone on this forum, I'm sure, has done it either on a personal or professional level. And I think that also needs to apply to our communities that we've been talking about. From an Itoke perspective, we need to change, be ready to change, and be willing to take on the sacrifices and to hear from the likes of Jay and others who can go and do face-to-face meetings with them for those that are really wanting to participate, for them to understand it's not a one-off venture, it's an ongoing, because tourism is a 24/7 operation. That's pretty much a key to the communities that want to participate. It's you have to be consistent, and that's been the challenges we have found. And also taking ownership and being accountable for whether it be a business venture or whether it's a community, like a cooperative approach, there needs to be accountability. And they need to understand the bigger picture, that people don't just front up to their village front to come and do a kava ceremony. There's a lot of processes that is involved, and a lot of mitigation from operators in terms of health and safety and all of that. So that bigger picture Talanoa really needs to happen, so that everyone is fully aware, and not just because someone has a waterfall or a feature, whether it be, that they want to be in tourism. They really have to understand, and they really have to be realistic in the expectations. That is not going to happen overnight. You heard from today, Jay's built this business over, close to 20 years now. So that is for me as an okay, that's the key thing that I share with the village communities that want to participate. They have so much energy at the beginning, but it's a marathon, and that's a message that needs to get across very clearly to them. They need to be ready to be part of that marathon, and otherwise it's going to be a few years and it's off again, and everyone's marketing efforts, like Lee from the destination perspective, is all gone to waste because the community cannot make it sustainable. So that to me was just the main thing I wanted to share. Otherwise, there's lots of experiences, lots of people around that want to help, but the communities need to be ready to be part of the industry. So I hope that makes sense. Navalevu. Oh, sorry, just one more thing. in as far as the for us as a business, a lot of our focus now is on community outreach with conference incentive groups. Some of their support through capital project is quite intensive and extensive. And the challenge for us is I do not mean to intentionally bypass authorities like Ministry of Education, but when the ministry needs to understand that when we are bidding, when we are trying to be different, giving them a concept of assistance to a school, it goes to a conference planner, and that conference planner goes to the corporate that they are representing, and then that they present it to the sales team. The sales team then goes to their board or to the management board to present a budget, and then so they also have their process. So, but sometimes when they come through to us with a final sign-off, like we have at the moment with the school in Tau, we only given like 6 to 7 weeks to implement. And if I'm like the sign-off from the corporate, so if I am to follow the due process with the government ministries, it's not going to happen. And that's why I normally sort of just go directly to the principal. And so that timing issue, the process needs to be communicated to our government agencies, that they need to understand what it takes in decision making. Thank you very much, and wish you all the very best. Thank you.
Samalo, James. Thank you so much for those very valuable advice. And I think for Itoke operators out there, understand the realities doing business, and knowing that there are resources that you can reach out to, and obviously we'll be able to share some of the contacts as part of our panelists, so you can contact them directly. Jay, I'll give the time to you. Mr. White.
Naka, just following on from what Lee and James said, thank you firstly for the opportunity. We appreciate this forum. It's good to share ideas and hopefully help one or more than one in what they're doing in their endeavors. But I guess sort of just following on from some of the things that James was saying about it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. That's very true for anyone who's in business, knows that it's many times it's a slog. There'll be some highs, and obviously inversely there'll be some lows. It's just your job to try and manage them as best you can. One of the things that I think is important if for anyone is that always keep your eyes on the prize. Set your goal, work towards it, then set the new goal, keep moving forward. One of the things that I think is relevant is that the message of failing to plan is planning to fail. So it's very important that you have a set agenda for what you're trying to achieve. Set your measurements, some of your KPIs in terms of what you're going to achieve in the first 6 months, 12 months, and then tick them off and move on to the next challenge. As James mentioned, sometimes a lot of people make the mistake, I guess, they fall into the mistake of thinking it's going to be easy. Once you've sort of established the business, then everyone's just going to turn up. You've got to keep working hard on making your attraction or your business a first choice for people who are coming to Fiji. I mentioned earlier about really focusing on your points of difference. You don't want to be like the person down the road. You really want to have something that makes your attraction, your business, your reason for someone to choose you over someone else. You need to have that point of difference. So really embrace it, highlight it, and don't give up when the going gets tough. Push through. It's important to have a really strong support network, people that you can rely on when those things happen. It's always good to have someone, like I mentioned earlier. I have a mentor, someone that I can go back to and ask questions, and even now, all these years later, that mentor is still very important for me. So I hope some of what we've shared today can benefit one or more or many, but I thank you for the opportunity to share some of those things, and hopefully I'll talk to some of you more offline in the future. Minaka.
Mucho Jane. Thanks so much for that. Lara and Leone?
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. From Leone and I and our community here in Madoata, we just again feel so privileged that we could speak today and get across really what Madoata has. We feel like we're a destination that's still yet to be explored. And we're still very much in our pristine condition. So I feel like we should have those opportunities for people to come up and do research up here and see what we have to help us preserve and conserve what's left here. And yeah, so I guess for us, we're just really wanting tourism to be more apparent in Lambasa town. Like there's really no awareness. All of the business license entities and like the town councils, they're just not really aware of tourism. So that's what makes it really hard for entrepreneurs trying to set up any type of tourism venture. It's really hard because the people that live here, our own locals, don't know it. They don't know that tourism can exist in Madoata. So I just hope that maybe Tourism Fiji can help in that way, just to get more awareness for our town. It seems that Savu is named as the tourism destination in Vanua Levu, but Leone and I truly believe that there's so much potential on our side as well. But there's just a lack of awareness. So we just need that that help from the tourism ministry and other people that can do that for us. So thank you.
Lara and Leone, and our time's up for the Q&A session. Again, Walevu to our fantastic panel of experts for giving your time today, as well to our audience and participants for your wonderful questions and comments. We will be sending out the recording and the context for the panel straight after this webinar. So with that, Modemanda from me, and I'll give this back to Jyoti Naka.
Thank you, Alici. So we have come to the end of this session. On behalf of the Ministry of Tourism and the Fiji government, please allow me to thank everyone for joining us today, especially to our panelists for sharing their experience, ideas, and views on the topic, to our development partner IFC and also Talonwa Consultancy for providing their support. To our participants, thank you for your contribution towards the discussion, and we look forward to your further support for the upcoming PPDs and your contribution towards the development of the National Sustainable Tourism Framework. Colleagues, our next session will be on Wednesday, 1st March, CFC 3.0, evaluation and standards. So we will see you all next week. Vinaka.
Naka, everybody. Have a good one.
Naka, thank you.
Naka.
Naka.
Navale, mundo mode.
Mode.
Naka. Mode modina.
Mode Lani, mode.
Mode.
Pinaka, Marita.
Io mode Rossi, mode.
Thank you, everyone.
Mode Maureen.
Mode Manda. Mode. Yeah.
Nakando mode.
You do mode. Right. Like I can see your cursor, so you need to X.